He had survived war, fire, loss, and time itself, but nothing prepared him for the moment a young man in uniform froze mid-step, stared at the faded tattoo on his arm, and whispered words that hadn't been spoken aloud in over 50 years. In that quiet diner, with the clink of dishes and the hum of everyday life, a forgotten hero was about to be remembered, and neither of them would leave the same. The old man sat alone in the corner booth, the vinyl seat cracked with age, much like his hands. His name was Samuel Carter, though no one had called him that in years. To the waitress, he was just another elderly customer who ordered the cheapest meal on the menu and tipped more than he should. To the other patrons, he was background noise, a quiet figure with a hunched back and eyes that seemed permanently fixed somewhere far away. Samuel had learned long ago how to disappear in plain sight. It came naturally after the war, after the parades ended, after the letters stopped coming, after the world moved on. His left sleeve was rolled just enough to keep it comfortable, revealing a faded tattoo on his forearm, an anchor wrapped in rope with barely readable numbers beneath it. Time had blurred the ink, just like time had blurred the memories of what that tattoo once meant. To anyone else, it looked like an old sailor's mark. Nothing special. Nothing worth a second glance. That was how Samuel preferred it. He stirred his coffee slowly, the steam rising like ghosts from another life. In his mind, he wasn't in the diner anymore. He was 19 again, standing on a ship deck at dawn, hands shaking not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. He remembered the faces of boys who never made it home. He remembered promises whispered in foxholes and screams swallowed by explosions. He remembered surviving when others didn't. That burden never left. The door to the diner opened with a soft chime. A group of people entered, laughter spilling in with them, but one man walked in silence. He was tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the controlled awareness of someone trained to read rooms before entering them. His posture spoke of discipline, his eyes of vigilance. He wore civilian clothes, but the haircut, the stance, they told a different story. His name was Lieutenant Jake Miller, U.S. Navy SEAL, age 32. Jake had just returned from deployment. Home felt strange, too quiet, too normal. He had come to the diner not for food, but for familiarity. A place where life continued without asking questions. As Jake waited near the counter, his eyes scanned the room out of habit. And that was when he saw it, the tattoo. At first, it didn't register. Then his breath caught. Jake's world narrowed to that faded ink on the old man's arm. His heart began to pound, not with fear, but recognition. The anchor. The rope. The numbers. He knew those numbers. He had seen them in history books, in training briefings, in stories passed down like sacred scripture among elite units. That tattoo wasn't decoration. It was a mark of a unit long disbanded. A group so secretive their missions were never officially acknowledged. Men who laid the foundation for everything Jake stood for. His legs refused to move. The old man noticed the stare and shifted uncomfortably, pulling his sleeve down slightly, instinctively hiding the past. He had seen that look before. Curiosity mixed with judgment. He expected the young man to look away, but Jake didn't. Instead, he took a step forward, then stopped again, as if crossing an invisible line. Samuel sighed quietly. "You all right, son?" he asked, his voice thin but steady. Jake opened his mouth. No words came out. Jake finally forced himself to move. Each step toward the booth felt heavier than the last. His training had prepared him for combat, chaos, loss. But not this, not standing in front of a living legend who didn't even know the world still owed him a debt. "Sir," Jake said, his voice tight, "that tattoo, where did you get it?" Samuel stiffened. He had spent decades avoiding that question. "Long time ago," he replied carefully. "Means nothing now." Jake swallowed hard. "With respect, sir, it means everything." The diner seemed to fade away. The clatter of plates dulled. Even the sunlight felt dimmer. Jake pulled out a chair but didn't sit. "My grandfather told me about men like you," he continued. "He said if you ever met one, you'd know, not because they'd brag, but because they wouldn't." Samuel looked up then, truly looked at him. Something in Jake's eyes, reverence, not pity, unsettled him. UCL? Samuel asked quietly. Yes, sir. Samuel gave a tired half smile. Figures. Jake pointed gently at the tattoo. Those numbers. They belong to the Maritime Special Operations Unit. Predecessor to us. You were there before it even had a name. Samuel's hand trembled. No one said that out loud in a long time, he whispered. Jake did something that shocked everyone in the diner. He stood up straight. And he saluted. The room fell silent. Samuel tried to wave it off, embarrassed. Don't do that, he muttered. I didn't do anything special. Jake's voice broke. Sir, you did everything. He told Samuel how his unit studied missions that were never declassified, how instructors spoke of ghosts in the water, men who went in first so others could come home later, how those stories inspired him to serve, to endure, to lead. Tears welled in Samuel's eyes, uninvited and long overdue. For 50 years, he said softly, I thought we were forgotten. Jake shook his head. No, sir. You were the reason. The waitress watched from behind the counter, wiping her hands on a towel, sensing something sacred unfolding. Other patrons sat quietly, unsure why their throats felt tight. Samuel reached across the table, his weathered hand meeting Jake's strong one. 2 generations, 1 legacy. I lost a lot of good men, Samuel said. Sometimes I wondered if surviving was a mistake. Would Jake lean closer? It wasn't. Because I'm here. And so are thousands like me, standing on your shoulders. When Jake finally left the diner, he paused at the door and looked back. Samuel was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. Samuel stayed seated, staring at his arm. The tattoo didn't look faded anymore. For the first time since the war, the weight felt lighter. He wasn't invisible. He was remembered. Heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they wear wrinkles. Sometimes they sit quietly, believing their sacrifices no longer matter. But legacy doesn't fade, it waits. And recognition, when it finally comes, can heal wounds that time never could. If you ever see an old tattoo, a quiet veteran, or someone the world seems to overlook, remember this. Behind them may stand generations who walk free because they once stood firm. And that changes everything.